Should you buy Mario vs. Donkey Kong? Last year, Nintendo announced that the GBA Classic would be completely remade for the Nintendo Switch, alongside like 5 other games. Gee, I wonder if a new console is on the horizon, guys. Anyways, I played the GBA version of this game in preparation of the imminent Switch release to determine whether or not this game is worth your hard-earned $50. Yes, you heard me right. This is a GBA game that's gonna be $50. So let's take a look at the original GBA game, and at the end, we'll peep our lookers to see what we can deduce from the Switch version to make an informed purchase. Congratulations for being a responsible consumer. This video is proof. Booting up the game, we see a pretty damn funny cutscene. Well, I guess it's a cutscene. It's really more of a PowerPoint with funny and compressed voice acting. So Donkey Kong, just to be a jerk, I guess, takes the mini Marios that I am amazed are not merch or an amiibo or anything yet. That doesn't count, and it's up to you to get them back. Now, for context, this might be the technical first game in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong sub-series, but the gameplay style here harkens back to Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy, which itself is based around the classic Donkey Kong arcade games. While these games and the mainline Mario games might both look like side-scrollers, and they technically are, the gameplay is more rooted in the concentrated decision-making and precise movement here. The enemies are not necessarily here to be defeated or stomped on, but more so maneuvered around, often by grabbing keys and taking them to a door. Jumping back to the future that's in our past, for a game that's slightly more limited, Mario has more moves than one might expect. One of my favorites is this triple land jump sort of thing, where if you hold down and jump, you can build height in succession. You can also use this pose to avoid bricks from Oscar the Grouch, I guess. Yep, because if people are throwing bricks at you, just do a handstand. That makes sense. Mario can also do this cool side flip thingy, but I think it's practically useless, and I've only ever done this by complete accident, so good move. More importantly, Mario can of course pick up and throw objects, including some of the many enemies in this game. You're able to throw the keys and enemies up, which is probably better than actually throwing up, if you know what I'm saying. Let me just say though, Mario in this game is a complete and utter wimp. He can't take significant fall damage or he just dies, which to be fair does technically harken back to the arcade games. And if you take one hit by any enemy, and guess what? You're dead. And yes, I know that this is supposed to be based around the original Donkey Kong, because people still do things from the 1980s all the time. That's why people are listening to disco and wearing freaking perms and denim all the time to this day. It makes perfect sense. I know me discussing this opens up a big old difficulty debate, but I personally find how quick you take damage in this game to be as annoying as potato chips on a pizza. I do consider this partially a control issue, I guess. Because this game is supposed to be based on the Donkey Kong arcade sub-series, your movement and jumps aren't really smooth. In fact, they feel a bit tad delayed, and that's all on purpose for the sake of being faithful. You know what else is faithful? Poverty. I really feel like this game would have just benefited more from just shaping the engine to be like, you know, all of these games. For instance, in the late game, a big game mechanic has you picking up bob-ombs and throwing them to blow up blocks. Basic Mario thing, Mario 2 did it, you didn't click on this video for a boring history lesson. But the issue with these exploding fucks is that it's so easy to accidentally touch one just while trying to grab it, due to the awkward controls, and then it's just over. You know what? Mario just sucks in this game. He's not fun to play as, and he's a complete pushover. The point of playing games is to feel powerful, like you're someone you're not. So when you can't so much as breathe without taking a single hit, why the hell am I even playing this? Now, I know it might sound like I don't like this game very much so far, and I just want to ensure you that... Oh, fuck. Okay, let me try to speak about the positives, then we can get back to being a cranky Kong. Look, I feel like this is mostly a pretty fun game. I don't want people to think I'm saying you shouldn't buy this game just by my early frustrations. For one, the presentation is amazing. I mean, as amazing as it can be for a GBA game, at least. It was 2004. Like, yeah, it might not be much nowadays, but as a kid, give me shiny, colorful backgrounds, these cute little sprites, and I was riding high. Unfortunately, though, I can't speak as positively about the music and sound design. It's oddly compressed, and I'm saying that in the context of it being a GBA game. Okay, we're gonna listen to this game's audio for a few seconds. Now let's listen to Pokemon Ruby, I guess. Like, maybe it's in my head or whatever, but it's just so gross sounding, and I don't think I can entirely boil it down to being on a Game Boy Advance. Like, maybe you can argue it's due to the sheer amount of songs, if there are that many, or Mario voice clips, or PowerPoint slide cutscenes taking up space on the cartridge, but it just makes this game unfun to listen to, whereas many GBA games contain many classics you can listen to easily to this very day. Audio is audio though. The real alpha chads mute their games, listen to white noise machines, and just play the game. I feel like most of the time this game is actually pretty fun, and let me get this clear, I do like most of the puzzle levels still. Which leads me to the question, is it a I think a lot of the mechanics are ultimately pretty clever. The red, blue, and yellow switches here are pretty genius and are a recurring theme throughout the adventure. It's simple. You want red blocks, hit the red switch. I don't need to repeat this for the rest, we're not in kindergarten anymore. Speak for yourself. The developers really got a decent bit of mileage with these switches. Some have said they were able to get 30 miles to the gallon even. They block off murderous lasers, create platforms to walk on, and give me an ulcer once in a while too. And a few other mechanics are pretty damn smart as well. I appreciate the hammers. Coming back from the ancient DK games, they're satisfying as all hell, and essentially a requirement in a few levels to defeat enemies. There are conveyors that test your timing, not only for Mario, but for sending keys in a certain direction. And the enemies are used strategically a lot of the time, such as enemies that you have to crouch onto to be carried over spikes. I like these little swingy things too. That's the official name. You are wrong, and I am right. Hashtag gaslighting. All of this merges together to create a pretty satisfying and cute puzzle game. It may not be a masterpiece or anything, but I feel like for this genre, there's a lot to admire here. And some of these puzzles take quite a bit of time to either figure out or find someone's crusty Bandicam walkthrough on the internet. Yeah, I guess which one I did more. There's one mechanic though. One damn thing that almost ruined my entire experience with Mario vs. Donkey Kong. These ropes. Oh my god. Look, I haven't played this game before this review, so if there's something I'm missing, I'm fully willing to admit that, but you're not getting that in writing because I don't want to get sued. But I cannot jump between these ropes to save my freaking life. I mean, literally, I couldn't because I would die. The amount of times in this game I almost pulled my hair straight out of my head over these ropes had to have been at least in the late hundreds. I swear to God, sometimes I would jump straight through them. I'm going to sort of break down what I think is happening here. My guess is that if you're in the air, you need to not only be near the rope in a specific area, but like tap the D-pad or something to even grab onto it, which just feels counterintuitive. And I know some games are like that as well. I acknowledge not every game automatically grabs onto ropes. But look, I do think this is a flaw with this game, and not just me being bad, because rope climbing as it exists in every other game I've ever played has never been an issue. So either there was something I was stupidly incredibly missing, or this wasn't programmed all that well. Or what I can guess is happening is because the controls are delayed, I simply could not master the timing of this trash. And don't even get me started on jumping off of a rope. You have to do it so many times in this game, right? And I swear to God, it was a 50-50 whether or not I would be able to even do it, because sometimes Mario would just fall straight to the ground like a complete asshole. I learned in late game that sometimes Mario will just auto gravitate to a sliding rope, so maybe there's something that's messing me up in terms of my patience, but this just was never intuitive to me at all. The Mario vs. Donkey Kong rope fan base will just have to survive. This is the point in the research process where I took some time to look into other reviews and see if I was alone in this issue, and yeah, I was. That's great. Look, I know this is a beloved classic, and it might be because I didn't grow up to it and I have no nostalgia, but I just didn't have that good of a time with it. I'm trying to justify my opinions, but they're opinions that I don't see many people agreeing with on the internet. And I'm sure people will probably just call me stupid, and maybe they're right. Wait, what? But here's the thing. I'm willing to admit this game is pretty good, objectively speaking, and it's possible that I just didn't really understand it, because there are aspects I really loved. At the end of every world, for instance, there's levels where Mario has to guide the mini Mario toys through an obstacle course, collecting the letters of the word toy. I genuinely felt like these were some of the more well thought out parts of the game. And while they frustrated me a bit sometimes, what I love most about these in particular is that anytime I felt confused or unsure of what to do, it was at least my fault and something I could really sit down and figure out by myself. And see, that brings me to my main point, where I think I fell out of love with this game mainly because I felt like I was unable to enjoy puzzle solving because I was dealing with what I I felt like were really unfair and unbalanced controls that just provided me a worse experience. Like, look at this trash where I clip straight through the rope. Cool story, brother. Or how about when I have a hammer and die anyways? That's not fair. If I have the item that makes me invincible, why the hell did that even kill me? Or look at this situation where I leave a key on a set of blocks and try to time it so it lands on a moving platform, because that's what I thought I had to do. But upon touching the switch, it just stays in the frickin' air. So now I have to do that all over again? And that's only the cherry on top of the poo-flavored ice cream of what made me angry in my time with this game. All right, there's one more saving grace to this game that does make me think, even in 2004, this was more than worth a purchase. The life system in this game is thankfully very gracious. And so even if something takes you a million tries, it's not the end of the world or anything, because you can just do it again. At first, I was unsure how the developers would handle this. This era's games did sometimes still have the permanent game over thing that I hate, or starting from the beginning of the world, for example. And I didn't even game over until World 5, so those 4 hours of anxiety were definitely healthy for me. The only aspect where lives are really important to discuss is that these games' levels are structured into 2 parts. Firstly is getting a key to the door, and the second is rescuing a mini Mario. So obviously, if you game over on the second segment, you're sent back to part 1. Now, don't get me wrong, in late game, that's still a bastard, and a bastard accused of armed robbery at that, because guess what? Every level after World 4 is incredibly hard and trial and error dependent. Honestly, what I do at a certain point is just purposely game over in the first half if I was running low on lives so I could have 5 again, because I didn't even see the point of even getting to the second half and just dying right away when I knew I'd be back there anyways. And lives are fairly plentiful in this game on top of that. There are 3 gift boxes throughout each level. If you get all 3, you get to play a minigame where you can win up to 3 lives. I don't really know how to win at these minigames. There's one where Donkey Kong will punch your boxes down, where you maybe have like 2 frames at most to predict which one he'll hit. And the other minigame, you stop an arrow, which basically uses no skill whatsoever. Cool, RNG, love it. What irritates me most about this system is that you can only play the minigame if you collect all 3 boxes, making it an all or nothing system. So if you miss one, or just go to the boxes you find most convenient, tough noogies. Has anyone said that in the 21st century yet? I might be the first. Regardless, I do appreciate these exist at a very minimum. I do like collectibles. Because why else would I buy this Noah and Mio amiibo for 40 bucks? It's not like I'm a sucker or anything. At the end of each world is predictably a boss fight. What's cute about these though is that your HP is determined by how many mini Marios you got to the box in the prior level. Even with 6 hits though, these fights can be downright difficult. The good news is that Donkey Kong only gets 4 hits, meaning you can at least screw up more than him, sucker. The bad news is these are really hard. And this leads me to where I had to stop playing the game. The final asterisk level. Oh my god. I spent so long on this fight that I eventually just rage quitted. See, at first, it seems like you have a normal World 6 boss where you have to push switches on conveyor belts to hit Donkey Kong with explosives. That seems fine enough, but then Donkey Kong takes the Toads and puts them in prison for federal crimes. You gotta climb this tower, get the keys, and unlock them all. Okay, that's fine, right? Nope, this fight never goddamn ends. You then gotta climb back down, get a barrel from the Toads, and hit him with it. I was able to do this twice, but I've essentially deemed the 3rd throw impossible. I know it's not. I know people have managed to do it. I know there's many people who probably will, but I tried for so long and I just wasn't able to win here, and it was gonna delay the video if I spent 5 more days on this fight. There's so much shit flying down in the 3rd phase that it is genuinely cruel. And again, you only have 1 hit. I know there are many people who have beaten this, and I'm sure if I spent another 5 to 6 hours, I would have eventually gotten lucky. But I personally found this fight to be completely disgraceful, unfun, and is one of the first times in the history of the show that I can remember that I have chosen to just rage quit instead of just finishing the game. I'm sure I'll be roasted for it, and maybe I deserve that, but I have my goddamn limits, and I just need you to respect that because I was going literally insane. And also, there's apparently a second set of levels after this. Well, guess you gotta find the rest of the game for yourself. So look, I don't think it's a secret. I've said it a few times now and hinted towards it. Mario vs. Donkey Kong on GBA is not my cup of tea. I will again acknowledge this is a classic and well-liked game, but as a reviewer, I find it essential to just be honest about how I feel about a product. If game reviewers reviewed games positively just because other people did too, then there'd be no free speech or point to even watching critiques. If you want to hear an echo chamber talking positively about your favorite favorite game, there are probably other places to do so. This is where I'm just gonna be honest, and you can either respect that or think I'm a clown, and I think both are probably valid. Probably the clown thing a little bit more. But you didn't come to this video to hear if you should buy the GBA version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong. You came to hear if you should buy the Switch version. Well, thankfully, Nintendo actually released a demo during the production of this video, so we don't have to make our decision just based off of trailers. I've tried that before. It's not fun. Obvious thing first, the graphics and music are vastly improved. It's a $50 port of a Game Boy Advance game, so you know, it better have. This game is very pretty to look at, and obviously the audio compression issues are completely gone. The cutscenes are just downright phenomenal too. They look good, like really good, in fact. I might have preferred this aesthetic for the Mario movie, honestly. Massive points for this presentation. It's basically as perfect as you can get for a console that's as powerful as my will to live. On this topic, I really appreciate that they kept Charles Martinet as Mario here. They could have just had the new voice actor re-record these lines, but it seems they just had the uncompressed voice lines sitting in the hard drive in a safe that Miyamoto probably has with soldiers guarding it 24/7. But how's the game? Well, unfortunately, I still feel like there's a certain degree of clunk still. The movement to me is pretty awkward, and I even had a few bad hitbox encounters. But generally speaking, I do think there is less input lag, and I imagine I would probably enjoy this version a lot more on the Switch. And there's even some good quality of life changes. As far as I'm aware, for instance, the fall damage has been removed. The main thing I wanted to test were the hellish ropes, but sadly there's only 4 levels in this demo, so I have zero clue if that's been fixed or not. I tested grabbing onto stuff a bit with this ladder, and it felt like, you know, grabbing onto a ladder, so I'm gonna assume that the ropes are gonna be a bit more manageable here. Hopefully this doesn't age poorly. Additionally, there's gonna be a casual mode now, so if my whining about the difficulty turned you off of the game, you're covered, fam. Okay, I'm never saying that again. I get there's a debate whether or not someone is a real gamer or whatever nonsense for using an easy mode. For me personally, if you're not having fun with the game, I feel like using an easy mode is completely valid. I've complained about games being too easy before, like with Pikmin 4, but I have no qualms about that if it's not forced upon the player and they can decide on their own accord. Easy mode is the only way I'm getting through Xenoblade 2, whether you people like it or not. And so the people who like the kick to the balls of Mario vs. Donkey Kong will happily get their balls kicked. Finally, there's a co-op mode now, and 2 new worlds have been added, which is pretty substantial in my opinion to justify this price tag. I do think $50 is a bit steep, but with so much new content and other modes, I do think you could barely justify the price if you were interested in playing it. Not for me, I'm done playing this game. With the casual mode though, I feel like everyone is gonna win at the end of the day with Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Switch, and I feel like there's not much left to complain about as a result. So unless the $50 is too steep, I do recommend this game. I would still recommend checking out the demo and seeing if the controls and physics are something you can see yourself enjoying though. But whatever, look, I really did like a certain number of aspects about Mario vs. Donkey Kong on GBA. It's not an irredeemable game, and the masses have sung its praises to the highest court, so people do clearly see value in this game, and I don't want my personal experience and opinion to get in the way of you, the viewer, buying that. You clicked on this video for an answer, and you know the answer you got? It depends. That's journalism for you, and I think I'm also on my road to being a professional YouTuber now. We're on the way to 10 million subs. I've finally cracked the code. Yeah!